Recently, I had the opportunity to collaborate with a content creator named Life in Grande. It was a fantastic experience. I enjoyed it. She's a photographer from a town in northeast Trinidad, doing amazing work growing her TikTok channel, Instagram. She's on Facebook, she's on YouTube. And today I want to share the lessons that I learned from her. Before we get into the lessons I learned, I want to say that as a content creator, I love collaborating with other content creators because you learn so much. You could share struggles, you could share victories, advice. By collaborating, you could have the opportunity to explore uncharted territory. And in the spirit of collaboration, I have with me a co-host by the name of Ishmael Big.
Lyndon, thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate it as always. I teach businesses how to import. I educate businesses on import and export. We always have conversations over the phone. We said this year, here's what these conversations and the golden nuggets we have need to be in our podcast. So that's why we're here today.
This is an exciting episode for me. I'm happy to have you here. And I spoke to the content creator named Life in Grande, and she said, "Listen, she said I'm really excited to hear all the lessons that you've gathered, and if it is anything that could contribute to my journey, what I want to do is I want to cover these points. And if at any time you want to jump in and contribute any of your thoughts, you feel free." When I met Life in Grande, she quickly established her purpose. Now, to put it into perspective, she goes around the town taking pictures primarily of interesting people that touch the town of Grande in some way. And when we met, she was wearing a branded t-shirt. It said there's a logo on the front that says Life in Grande and a big logo to the back that says Life in Grande. And it stood out to me that she established her purpose by her appearance immediately. And she has this laser focus because I questioned her and I said, do you see yourself as a photographer or videographer? She said, no, I am a photographer and I am interested in people. I'm not even very interested in the landscape and the buildings around me. My thing is people.
I like how you said about establishing your purpose, and she has established her purpose as well. Is really key for this is one of the first things as a content creator when you're now starting off 0 followers. You might take the first couple of months to figure out what you're really doing, what the direction is, but you need to establish your purpose as what it is you want to do. How you have to start to ask yourself questions like, okay, I want to be a photographer. How do I want people to perceive me? What are the things that I need to do so people wouldn't get misguided or get misdirection and think I'm something else? That lesson you learned of establishing your purpose is something so key. And let's say today's the day I decide to be a content creator within a certain niche, and I figure out my purpose today and I write it down. No, sometimes we had to circle back to that every couple of months or every couple of years. You
For the
know?
purpose of what, reminding yourself?
Yeah, reminding yourself, because sometimes too you might reach a point in your journey where you might be a little stressed. I remember you and I having this conversation last year with regards to that, and I remember reminding you what was your purpose. You're a storyteller, in Kora. That's how it all started, and it all comes back to the story and how you tell it as a content creator, and circling
I,
back
I,
to
I love that her purpose is even narrowed down to a tone.
yeah,
That
yeah.
my focus is Grande. A project like this occurred to me some months ago. The name of it was Faces of Kora.
Mm,
And Faces of Kora, I would move around and I would take photographs of people and I'd tell little stories behind them. And I even had to recognize that as a solo creator, it's not possible for me to pull off that as much as I would love to. As much as
yeah.
I'd love to, quickly tell the story of someone else. So I had to, for myself, establish that, hey, my purpose is these type of videos where I'm telling human interest stories. I can't even afford to be a photographer right now because my time would be too divided. I have a question though. When you see yourself as particularly as a photographer in 2024, when we have the sense, or we're being told that, hey, video content is what you need to do to reach more and more people, does it kind of force the person who's a photographer to say, I need to explore, well, you know what, I am a photographer, what, to get myself out there and people are aware of the work I'm doing? Am I forced to some extent to operate in that
Un-
capacity?
Unfortunately, yes. I will start with a very big statistic. We all know the number one social platform for photos was Instagram. When Instagram came out, Instagram was the app for photographers to express themselves and their photos. And, Instagram was just mainly photos. And they realized that, hey, video is it. The algorithms on all social platforms favor video over a photo. What she would need to do is really showcase behind the scenes of how she makes her content or how she takes her photos.
You're touching on something that I'm excited about, but we'll
Yep,
get back
no
to it
problem.
in a little bit, right? This idea of establishing your purpose. There were very clear introductions when Life and Grande approached a stranger for photographs, and she had a script in terms of saying, my name is Crystal. I manage a page called Life and Grande. I take photos of interesting people that touch on the town of Grande. Are you okay with being photographed and telling your story? That was a key takeaway for me. And is for sometimes I might see things as routine, like, hey, it's kind of boring to just approach people with the same thing over and over. But when I saw it in action, I was like, hey, this is
Mhm.
very helpful from the point of view of, even the content creator calming their nerves and saying, this is the
Mhm.
approach that I'm going to use. And how important it is in that line to make people comfortable. Sorry, you have something to say?
When I saw that part, I was like, that is so brilliant. She did it very well because, like you just said, it really calms the nerves of the person. It really sets the stage and sets up everything for her brand of Life and Grande. So, especially for her and her style of content and that kind of thing, that was so brilliant of her of having that basic script, of setting the stage as opposed to just running up in your face and taking your photos and that kind of thing.
And it kind of just puts you into this routine of,
Hmm.
hey, this is how I approach people. This is what I use. You're getting better results. And listen, it's fantastic the results that Life in Grande is getting in the different social media platforms. And it's really interesting to hear you say that Instagram is changing the algorithms to favor video, and how the content creator has to be adaptable to not just these real world situations in terms of dealing with people,
Hmm.
but what's happening online and staying there's this kind of continuous learning process. I feel kind of sorry for content creators, to be honest,
No,
especially a solo creator. You have
it
so much of fronts you're fighting on.
being a content creator now, whether you're doing it from a storytelling aspect or for me from a business aspect, it doesn't matter what industry it is. Content creation is needed. And it is so bad to the point that corporate companies that were in the yellow pages days or the TV and radio ads days realize it not working. It's a situation now where even for her Life in Grande, companies or persons might see her content and be like, you know what? We's a company in Grande and we see her content and it's good, let's sponsor her. That's the landscape we're dealing with now in this day and age.
And I didn't mention this, but in 2024, she is focused on becoming a full-time content creator, and dedicating all of her efforts towards Life in Grande. So I think that, this wasn't my experience, but to see this content creator who has clearly established their purpose, I have learned so much from it in terms of even content that, I might have nice ideas in this sense, but I can't focus on that right now. This is my purpose. This is where I could get the maximum rewards from right now. Now, I just want to kind of jump to the second point, and this has to do. I don't know if this is a lesson learned, but it was something that came up about 2 or 3 times in conversation, which was this idea of imposter syndrome. And Crystal, that's the name of the content creator from Life in Grande, she mentioned to me about 2 or 3 times, I think it's important for me to say that I am not a journalist, I am not a photographer. And to quickly just kind of cover what imposter syndrome is defined as. I went online, looked it up. Imposter syndrome is the internal psychological experience of feeling like a phony in some areas of your life, despite any success that you have achieved in that area. And she's very transparent about, I'm not a journalist, I am not a history buff. But what I absolutely took away from the experience in conversation was that she seeked out a mentor in the form of a photographer, a gentleman by the name of Richard Monroe, to enhance her photography skills. So I was impressed to see someone who she mentioned that, hey, the one asset I had was a camera. I know that I'm not a photographer, but I need to go out there and hunt for a guide that could take me along this journey in terms of, I may not be shooting professional photos for you, but I'm there to learn from you. And how important it is for us to seek out a guide in terms
Yeah.
of, just being able to sharpen your skills.
I'm glad you brought this up because just transitioning from establishing your purpose, that's one of the first things we need to do. Once we establish our purpose, the next thing is, while we are growing and building in that purpose and our niche and our vision of what we want to do, we need to find out who is the expert in our field. The skill we're lacking, so in her case it's photography. Not saying she's lacking in photography, we're not lacking in anything, we could always improve in everything, but um if it's a situation which is very good, that we recognize that you want to improve, that you find the expert in that field. And by finding the expert in that field, you wouldn't have this imposter syndrome, because that expert and that guide will constantly ground you back to your purpose, ground you back and say, hey, remember what it is you really want to do. And these are the different angles. So, having that guide and mentorship is so needed. Um, and I see it a lot from you, where I need the storytelling aspect. Like, I look at you, you're very well versed with the storytelling and writing. And for years, I've always realized and told you, hey, this is something I need to incorporate. And that's one of the things, even for me, for 2024, is to start incorporating that story aspect. So I would say that, yes, Mr. Lyndon Baptiste is my mentor when it comes to, the aspect of storytelling. Is very much just good to seek out a mentor when you're now starting off.
And if we look at movies, we'll quickly realize that along the way, they always find a guide that could that could teach them how to
Yeah,
beat Thanos, that could teach
yeah,
them how
yeah.
to
Uh,
destroy the ring.
I'll just probably say a book drop here for content creators, and this book will definitely benefit her. Would be Story Brand by Donald Miller. That really explains how you really write a story in the simplest form. And
I'm glad you touched on that point because, sorry, I feel like I cut in there. Sorry about that.
no, that's fine. That's fine. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Seeking mentorship, it also takes you may not be able to find a physical, real asset, somebody that could contribute their time to you. But you have all these these books that you could participate in, you could download for next to nothing, maybe online.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I have started reading a lot more in 2023, and I think is beneficial. And I was quite surprised at this.
Mhm.
She described herself as an awkward person. Now I'm there with her collaborating, I'm observing, I'm filming the video of her interacting with people that she wants to photograph. And I say to myself, is life in Grande? Is this content creator fooling me? And I realized that by having the script, it eases that process. And she even said to me, she said, listen, I see myself as an awkward individual. You have the same human ups and downs of other people, but you're operating professionally in the real world environment as you're creating your content. And then she said to me, she said, I have found that I'm embracing my awkwardness a little bit more. And it's helping me. For instance, I have, in her words, I have a nervous laugh. And I realized that if I'm chatting with someone and I tend to use, the nervous laugh comes out, that they may accommodate me more than if I had tried to suppress it. I don't know that I have ever suppressed who I am as a content creator, but she described that when she suppressed it, how it led to certain it just made interactions a little bit worse versus when she embraced who
Yeah.
she was. And it was a helpful reminder to me to say, hey, embrace who you are as a person, as a content creator, and just let that work for you.
I agree 1,000%. This is something I last year I remember speaking to this content creator after a live. Anil Kanita James. Anil called me afterwards a night on a live, and he was telling me he loves what I'm doing. He's like, I need to see more you. I like the tips. I like the way you're giving or whatever. I need to see more of you. And prior to this, I remember my wife telling me the same thing. Those little things that, like you say, it might be awkward, or what is that? But how we laugh or how we say certain things, that's you. That's your signature. That's the little things that make up you. So it's actually really good, and it actually makes the content creation much easier, because you don't have to be thinking about, oh shucks, I laugh too loud here, or oh shucks, I shouldn't have said this. No, leave it in. That's you. You can't, and you realize some of the little things we stress about don't really matter to the viewer. You
That
know,
is so true. It does not
just
really matter.
yeah,
Even in
just
terms of your editing process and
yeah,
things that you
yeah.
is amazing, the pressure that you could really put yourself under. But it is a key takeaway for me to embrace a little bit more. I struggled with it along the lines of even dark humor and using it.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize that, hey, the people who they're looking for that particular thing from you, are they
Mm.
interested in that particular thing, be it dark humor or be it that, hey, maybe it's just they find it cool how awkward you might be.
I think when started off, because I'm into comedy and um learning how comedians write and that kind of thing. When I picked up your dark humor, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is and that's where I was hooked, because that's really, I was like, all right, let me see this element he coming with here. Our personality and who we are gives the viewer something to look forward to. So don't hold back on it. Just be you, who you are. It can't be too robotic with it. Yeah, you have she has her script and all these sorts of things, but from time you get that out to the way and you're ready, it's like just it's like your partner down the road and you're having a normal conversation with him.
And the beauty is to really embrace the process. Like I would acknowledge this is our second go at recording this podcast episode. The first one may have had certain because you suddenly
Hmm.
start to think about yourself in a certain environment. Hey, this
Yeah,
is no longer a conversation that is private. It's going to go out into the public space. So
yeah,
so it takes time to sharpen these skills to become more
yeah,
comfortable. But I guess we always say that the more you do it, you what they call it, like you're using the muscle, the improving the muscle memory
yeah. The
aspect of
muscle
it.
memory. Just to touch on that, I am actually going to Panama in a couple of days. So today's Sunday we filming this. Like Friday I'm leaving, right? I want to be doing a lot of heavy filming. One of the things I do as a content creator, I remember Tony Robbins in one of his book was explaining this, but basically what he would do before um he would speak or do anything, he would do a little rehearsal. Sometimes my rehearsal would be in the car just talking, as mad as that sounds, right? Talking to yourself. The rehearsal is good because it helps. You know how she has the script to calm the other person and set the stage? We need that too, to set the stage. And it's not only about we writing down the points what we want to talk about, or you writing down what you want to cover when you go out there, but it's us making sure that we stick into this because it keeps us structure with everything.
Let's jump into the third lesson that I picked up. And it has to
Mm.
do with routine and content discovery. And at the end of this, I really want to talk about how the content creator could structure the day to structure their week to maximize the output that they have. Because we were discussing earlier how you have the elements of video being used more now on Instagram. So yes, I might see myself as a photographer, but how can I arrange my week so that I'm getting to enjoy my work as a photographer, but simultaneously create content for Instagram, for YouTube, and the different species that she may be on. So, as I mentioned earlier, it is a full time job for her. It is a daily commitment. And that is a big lesson for me. This is a daily commitment that every day I'm walking through the town, I'm practicing my craft. In my instance, I have wasted away days and weeks by not daily writing. Is there anything in particular you would like to spend time on more as a content creator daily?
For me, I have realized where I'm at right now. I need to be producing more. If we don't show up, I gave this example. I believe it was you. We had this conversation. No, I had this conversation with another content creator. This was Kivo TV. Take for example, you have a roti shop. It now open. You go, you mightn't say anything. You go, you order, you leave, you go, you order it. But you do it a couple of times. After some time, the owners will be like, "Oh, Ishmael reach regular, right? No problem." That is content creation, showing up every single thing, every single day. And I think that is what I need to do. I need to show up every day, but in different formats and different scenarios and different topics and different situations. That is what I definitely need to do more. Just spend time building more content and having, listen to this, having a building a better relationship with my audience,
Using different formats.
different formats. So, for example, with her, and this is where she could we were touching the aspect earlier about she being a photographer, but she has to force she has to do video. It could be as simple thing as she does a quick video saying, hey, cover this with the snow cone person, and his snow cone isn't real good, check him out, or I ain't gonna lie, it surprised me how the snow cone tastes, or whatever it may be. So her little perspective on things, that could be her easy format.
That sounds good in theory. So you're saying, okay, you're going out there for photographs, but you also might be creating different forms of content in the same day. So you have maybe your camera that you're taking your pictures on,
Mm,
and you also have your phone that you're probably recording your shorts or pieces of a long form video. For me personally,
mhm.
I find it very difficult to create different types of content in the same sitting. So if I go out now, I am not a photographer.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Thank you for saying that so much, because I, for almost a year to 2 years straight, I have lived that. It's hard. I have been creating 2-minute TikTok videos. TikTok is my main platform. You have come from a space of a lot of long form content with YouTube or whatever. And I used to look at the long form content as, wait, boy, that's real editing and real. But now doing much more long form content is so needed. With the longer form content, I could get so much 2-minute videos out of a podcast as opposed to sitting down, writing, scripting, doing this just for 2 minutes. From time you do it and it's out there, that's it. It's gone. You had to go again, as opposed to you come back to the long form and you pick out, you have enough content. Some content creators say they have enough content for a week, a month. So long form is definitely needed in 2024. And I think that's one of the things, just to circle back to my thing, is for me, that's one thing I need to do more.
So you're generating the long form content and using that to extract your short form and maybe even your pictures from.
Yeah.
If she has 5 days, she's in Grande, doing life in Grande on a daily basis from Monday to Friday. How should she organize her days to maximize her output? In that she could show up on Instagram for photographs, she could show up in shorts on TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook, and even long form content in these different spaces. How would you manage your week if you were doing a project like Life and Grande?
You could go two ways with this. You can either come up with a system where when you go out there, you could say, okay, you instead of splitting up each day, okay, today we're doing short form, long form. Sorry, today we're doing short form, then tomorrow you'll do long form. Then, one day you're doing pictures. You could come up with a hybrid system of doing all of that in one day, and you save time on other days. Or she has to know if a particular piece of content or style needs time to be spent on. If that is the situation, then she needs to dedicate, okay, let's say on Monday I'll only be doing photos, a Tuesday it'll only be long form content. So once she figures out now, you have to do it just like school timetable. She and all content creators, you need a timetable. So once you figure out that now, and you have that organizational structure, like for me, what I would do every Monday, you film out 2 weeks of TikToks, 14 days. Well, I don't really count the weekends, but let's say 5 days, 5 days, that's 10 TikToks. That's 2 minutes each. So that's 20. That's the math's correct, right? That's 20 minutes, right?
You lost me already.
but yeah. So basically half an hour of filming. For me, I would just film on a Monday and that's it. I don't need to film for the rest of the week. So if she's doing it for full time, she would need to know where what is important for her and where she needs to spend time on. But my advice to her of if I were to do it, I would do a hybrid system where when I go out, I get X amount of photos. I have a safety net of a long form video, so I could pull from that different clips, different styles, etc. But the key thing here, incorporating the business aspect of it. So you build in your storyline and everything. But again, as you had mentioned, she's a full time content creator. We had to eat. You can't just be doing this for kicks and you ain't reached 65, 70 years old where you have nothing else to do in life and this is something you enjoy. Content creators who are now young and up and coming, I emphasize so much, please have a business aspect to this, because along the journey and way, you might tend to lose interest and get tired of what you're doing. I'm not saying money would be like is a motivation of it, but within your schedule, probably have that some sort of plan of monetization aspect too as well, to kind of keep you going, as you go along. Just to wrap up my thing on this is that she would need to identify what are the most important things and either dedicate days for each or do a hybrid system where if she could knock it out in a day or 2 days, and then the rest of the days she just spends editing and posting and that kind of thing.
Definitely. For someone with my capacity and how I approach things, I know I would not be able to pull off a hybrid type model where I'm doing 3 forms of content creation in the same day. My approach, and there's no right approach, my approach would be I would get my photographs, I'd get my vertical videos, I would get my long form content, and then I would dedicate 2 of those days, maybe even as much as 3 days to this batch recording, batch editing the photographs. And there's this interesting point in terms of like quality, yeah? In terms of everything, you want everything to be the best that it could be in the moment. And I would kind of give maybe priority to some aspect where the quality has to be top notch, whether it is always through the photographs. Sometimes we make little concessions maybe in the editing of the video aspect. So that's in terms of like balancing the time. But at the end of that 1 week, at the end of every week, Life and Grande or any content creator that's dedicating this full-time effort should be able to say, I should have a month's worth of content. And maybe there's a week or two inside of there where the focus is not necessarily even content creation, but that business aspect, you see, in terms of finding sponsors and sponsors who, they tie in with the vision of there's someone that said to her, two people at least, who said to Life in Grande that the work you are doing is so important because it is bringing things are hard when it comes to making a living. Things are hard, and you are bringing attention to these people. It might be the snow cone man that someone sees and say, hey, I see that man in that video. I saw him in some pictures. I should support him, boy. Let me stop and support him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So finding sponsors with the content that you make, so that you could easily say, hey, this is a business in Grande. I already have a month's worth of content put down. They've committed to, a week or a month worth of content, and you could now just incorporate their message
And
or their branding aspect into it.
one of the things she needs to do, and she's already doing it. You have done this very well too. Think about your viewer. Think about their situation. I remember meeting one of your subscribers. They were telling me one of the reasons why I like to watch Lyndon the Baptiste. He was away in lockdown and he was watching your videos because he missed home. He missed Trinidad. He missed seeing that greenery, seeing you're going for doubles. To some viewers, that's real important to them. As a matter of fact, it's a relaxation for them. Her thinking about the viewer in mind will help her to craft her content schedule better and know what is important. And that is why we go through a testing phase with our content. And this is where data is important for her, for all of us, where we see, okay, people really gravitating towards my storytelling videos. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky. She might be passionate about the photos aspect and seeing a particular form of her content getting more attention as opposed to what she's passionate about. Sometimes I don't want to say at the end of the day, well, that's the route you had to go. No, you don't want to throw out what you're passionate about, but you have to find a ground where you kind of please everybody. You might have some listeners, like for us, you might have some listeners who we like, part of the audience only like audio. They might put it on in the car and listen to the audio aspect of it. Then you have people who want the short form, then people who appreciate the photos and that kind of thing. So, this is where she will go through a testing phase when she creates our content schedule, like all of us. And the key thing is think about the viewer in mind, how they would feel, how they would react to a piece of content. Because through that, just like you said, I see the videos like, hey, but that's the snow cone man I see. Let me stop and support him.
Thank you, Ishmael. I appreciate that. So from working with Life in Grande, some of the things that stood out to me that I believe will be helpful to other content creators is, one, establish your purpose. As I say, when we met, Crystal was wearing a branded t-shirt. She has laser focus. She knows, hey, I'm a photographer. I'm interested in telling the stories of the people that touch Grande in some way, whether they're residents or they pass through here on a daily basis. It stood out that she has the script to introduce herself to people, to establish the purpose of her work, and to make them comfortable so that she could engage them. And she always asks for permission. Is it okay with you if I take your photograph? That's a real important element that I didn't touch on in some more details. Also, something I didn't touch on is that establishing your purpose could help you clarify misconceptions about your work, because it's so important to set the boundaries or the borders of what you stand for. We spoke about imposter syndrome. This feeling that I am a phony because I am not trained in a particular area in life. I'm not a photographer, I'm not a journalist, but I could seek out a mentor that could give me the experience, and I could dedicate myself to learning from books and YouTube videos. And bearing in mind that even if you feel like an imposter, that the work you're doing is for an audience, as Ishmael was saying, that appreciate the work you're doing despite your lack of some form of a paper qualification. And then this idea of, embracing who you are as an individual. And when you embrace who you are, it helps, just make genuine connections
Yeah.
with people, and even improves your situation because you're no longer operating at a higher or lower frequency than you actually are accustomed to, who you are. And then this idea of routine and content discovery in terms of it being a full-time job and a daily commitment. And even if you're a content creator and you're not, it's a side hustle, so to say, you have your main job. Which is my situation, but I have established a certain timetable, as we were hearing from Ishmael, in terms of keeping a schedule and knowing every morning at 5 a.m. I'd like to be up. I'd like to be writing at least one article. I'd like to record at least one podcast per week so that I could hit my targets. And we heard about this idea of batch recording, going out there for whatever works for you. A hybrid Ishmael was talking about in terms of I'll get all my photographs, shorts and long form content in one day. Or maybe you're a content creator like me and you could only dedicate yourself to one activity. And if I go out there for shorts, I tell you, I could get about 50 shorts in one day.
Yeah.
So, Ishmael, any closing remarks that would benefit life in Grande
You-
or another content creator?
You know what I'm seeing here. This to really end this off. I think, and I'm looking at the notes here. I just realized that the lessons you learned from this content creator in Grande, and what you basically outline here, is the actual blueprint. I think that every content creator should actually follow. And I'm now recapping, but when you look at it from a outside the box perspective, is establish your purpose. The imposter syndrome really is, here's what: believe in yourself and find that person to really support you in what you're doing. And lastly, really having a map and a plan as to how you drive your passion and what you want to do as a content creator. So I think this, what we just did here, is the actual blueprint. One of the things I just want to add to her and to everybody else, apply for me and you. This is something I even teach in the import bootcamp course that I have, where um, in that I tell people, don't bring in 5, 10 different products. Just focus on one thing. And this one thing actually came from the book. You know it as well. I remember recommending it to you. The One Thing by Gary Keller, where he dives into that book and shows you the amount of companies and the amount of things that people just that the amount of companies started by just doing one thing. And always remembering, going back to that first thing of establishing your purpose, always remember what you're focused on, what you need to do, and what's that one thing. And I think that one thing, for it's Crystal is the name, right?
Yeah,
That
Crystal from Life in Grande.
Right. That one thing Crystal needs to focus on and her purpose is life in Grande.
That is key. It will. I'm really happy that you said that because it's going to just pull everything in terms of building her presence there, sponsors reaching out and saying, "Hey, this is focus. If I want to reach people in Grande, this is the way to do it. This is an expert on Grande showcasing the places." So thank you very much for that aspect of it, because you could be so tempted at some point to kind of drift away from it and say, well, maybe I should go and cover Kora on a weekly basis. But the people who are there, they are there for, of course, you'll touch on different side streets and maybe neighboring villages. As she said, the people who touch Grande is who she's interested in. And one of the lessons I need to take out of what you just said there is, that idea of focusing on what my content is about and producing that, because by staying true to it, the audience will find me because that's what they're looking for. And ultimately, I'll be able to put $1 in my pocket as a content creator because those businesses would find me too.
Yeah.
So,
most definitely.
Ishmael, I appreciate you joining me in this episode here. Thank you very much for your wonderful contributions. listener, what I would do is I will put links to Ishmael's social media pages so that you could connect with him.
Appreciate it.
And I'll see you in the next episode.